Hi guys, tonight we'll explore a place often called Russia's Area 51. Hidden deep in the steppe, Kapustin Yar has long been shrouded in secrecy. It's a place where rockets first touched the sky, but also where strange lights and mysterious encounters have been reported for decades. Some believe it hides answers that were never meant to be shared. If you appreciate calm, reflective journeys through forgotten times, don't forget to tap like, subscribe, and share in the comments where you're watching from. I always enjoy seeing where these stories are reaching, and tell me, what hidden story should we uncover together next? Kapustin Yar lies in the Astrakhan region, a remote and quiet stretch of southern Russia where the endless flatlands meet the horizon. At first glance, there is nothing remarkable about the area. Fields of grass, dry winds, and distant villages that seem unchanged for centuries. But beneath this calm exterior lies one of the Soviet Union's most secretive military test sites, built in 1946 at the dawn of the Cold War. It was here that the USSR launched its earliest rockets, pieced together from captured German technology after World War II. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked in silence, often under harsh conditions, to match and surpass what was happening at places like White Sands in the United States. The site quickly became more than a proving ground. Stories began to circulate, quiet at first, whispered between workers and villagers, about strange lights seen darting through the night sky. These were not the controlled arcs of test missiles, but irregular, sudden flashes that seemed to move with intelligence. Some claim that the military quietly collected fragments of unknown origin, pieces that did not resemble any known aircraft or rocket. Over the years, rumours grew. The secrecy surrounding Kapustin Yar gave fuel to speculation that something beyond ordinary weapons development was happening here. Western intelligence agencies too took notice. Satellite images revealed unusual structures, underground bunkers, and facilities that did not match the standard layouts of missile ranges. In time, Kapustin Yar earned its reputation as Russia's counterpart to Area 51 in Nevada, a place where the line between technological innovation and the unexplained blurred. Yet, unlike Area 51, far less is openly known. Much remains buried in classified documents and forgotten archives, leaving room for imagination to fill the gaps. To understand the legend, one must start with its origins. In the aftermath of the war, the Soviets captured pieces of the German V-2 program, including not just rockets but also scientists. These were brought to Kapustin Yar, where they would reconstruct, test and launch prototypes. The early tests were clumsy, and failures were frequent, yet the determination was fierce. The silence of the steppe would be broken by thunderous roars as engines ignited and flames tore upward. Villagers miles away could see the sudden fireballs of failed launches streaking across the dark. But even then, some witnesses claimed to see more. Lights that lingered in the air after the explosions had faded. Lights that behaved unlike falling debris. For the Soviet military, secrecy was everything. Reports were dismissed, accidents concealed, and workers warned never to speak outside the perimeter. Still, the stories spread. Over time, Kapustin Yar became more than a test site. It became a legend of hidden encounters, a stage where science and the unexplained seemed to coexist. And so, our journey into this mystery begins. After its founding in 1946, Kapustin Yar quickly grew into a centerpiece of Soviet rocketry. Surrounded by miles of steppe and shielded from public eyes, the base was perfect for experiments that demanded absolute secrecy. The Soviet Union needed results fast, and the engineers tasked with launching these early rockets had little time or resources. They were working with fragments of German technology, some captured V-2 missiles, and scraps of documentation. From this, they had to reverse engineer an entire program. The first launches were more symbolic than practical. Each flight, whether successful or not, carried the weight of national pride. A successful liftoff meant progress in closing the gap with the West. A failure meant another layer of silence, as reports of accidents were buried under classified orders. Workers at the base lived in small settlements nearby, often under harsh conditions. Many were young men and women who had no choice but to obey orders and continue the mission. They watched as rockets screamed into the sky, sometimes rising cleanly, sometimes shattering in mid-air with violent explosions that lit the night. Even in failure, the launches left a lasting impression. Villagers living on the edges of the steppe often described the sight of fiery trails arcing across the horizon. For them, it was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. But alongside the expected chaos of rocket testing, there were accounts of stranger events. People spoke of lights that hovered silently, moving in ways no missile could. These lights did not fall or explode. They danced, paused, and then shot off at impossible speeds. The villagers did not have the words for what they saw, but they knew it was different from the Soviet experiments. Some military personnel quietly acknowledged these sightings as well. Though their reports never made it into official files, stories survived through whispered recollections. Men spoke of sudden radar anomalies, signals that appeared where no aircraft should be. Others mentioned patrols sent out to recover strange metallic fragments in the fields, pieces that did not match the known wreckage of missiles. Of course, in the Soviet Union of that era, such stories were dangerous. Curiosity could easily be seen as disloyalty. Workers were warned never to speculate, never to talk to outsiders, and never to question the nature of what they witnessed. Yet the secrecy only deepened the sense of mystery. To the outside world, Kapustin Yar remained an enigma. Western analysts scanned grainy photographs taken from high-altitude reconnaissance flights. They noted the runways, the bunkers, the launch pads. But some structures defied explanation. Why so many underground facilities? Why such elaborate protective hangars? By the 1950s, Kapustin Yar had become more than a missile range. It was a symbol of the unknown, a place where the ordinary rules of understanding seemed to falter. And as the Cold War intensified, the rumours only grew louder. Some believed that hidden beneath those bunkers were not just rockets, but something far stranger, something recovered, studied, and concealed from the world. By the mid-1950s, Kapustin Yar had transformed into a sprawling complex of launch pads, underground shelters, and research facilities. It was no longer a makeshift site for testing captured German rockets. It had become the heart of the Soviet missile program. The steppe, once empty and silent, now carried the echoes of engines, sirens, and the constant rumble of machinery. Each new test was carefully planned, but to the local villagers it all felt unpredictable. The sky might remain calm for weeks, then suddenly erupt with thunder as another launch shook the ground. What unsettled many people was not just the noise or the fire streaking across the night, it was what often followed. Strange glowing objects were reported, sometimes hovering in the sky after a launch, as if observing. These lights were described as silent, moving with impossible speed, and vanishing without a trace. At times, witnesses swore they saw them appear before any rocket tests, as though anticipating what was to come. Within the military, these sightings were dismissed officially, yet quietly taken note of. Radar operators reported unexplained blips, objects flying faster than any known aircraft. Patrols were sent to investigate, and sometimes they returned with fragments, pieces of metal that did not burn or bend like ordinary wreckage. Such finds were stored away, never spoken of again. For the young soldiers stationed there, life was a blend of routine and tension. They drilled, guarded the perimeter, and worked long shifts, often without knowing the full scope of what they were protecting. Many admitted years later that they felt watched, not just by Western spies, but by something beyond human. The air at night was heavy, filled with a silence that seemed unnatural between launches. When the winds died, the steppe was so still that every unusual sound carried for miles. Villagers told of livestock becoming restless, dogs barking wildly before strange lights appeared in the sky. Some refused to leave their homes after dark, fearing what might drift silently above. Western intelligence agencies grew increasingly interested. High-altitude reconnaissance flights revealed more unusual construction, massive underground bunkers, radar domes, and oddly shaped hangars. Some analysts suggested the Soviets were hiding advanced experimental aircraft. Others wondered if what they were testing was not entirely of their own making. By then, Kapustin Yar's reputation was firmly rooted in secrecy. It was a place of progress, but also of shadows. Every successful launch advanced the Soviet Union's reach into the skies. Yet every unexplained light, every hidden fragment, every whispered story hinted at something else, something the world was never meant to fully see. By the late 1950s, Kapustin Yar was no longer just a proving ground. It had become a secret city within the steppe. Thousands of personnel lived and worked behind guarded fences, their lives revolving around projects they could not discuss even with family. Letters were censored, movements restricted, and every visitor was carefully screened. For the outside world, Kapustin Yar existed only as a vague dot on a classified map, but inside it pulsed with constant activity. Engineers laboured on new rocket designs, technicians monitored radar screens, and guards patrolled day and night across endless perimeters of barren land. Beyond the official missions, rumours spread through the ranks. Some soldiers claimed that certain hangars were permanently locked, accessible only to a handful of high-ranking officers. Others whispered that unusual objects had been transported under heavy cover, always at night, with entire roads cleared so no one could witness what was being moved. In the villages nearby, life carried on as it always had, but stories seeped out quietly. Farmers told of glowing orbs drifting low over their fields. Shepherds recalled moments when their animals scattered in panic at invisible forces. Older villagers spoke of nights when the sky lit up with colours not from rockets, but from silent flashes that hovered and then dissolved into the dark. Western observers grew deeply suspicious. Aerial photographs showed increasingly complex infrastructure. Underground silos, vast storage bunkers, and shapes on the ground that looked like testing ranges for far more than simple missiles. Some intelligence reports even suggested that the Soviets might have recovered something unusual, technology far beyond current human capability. For those stationed at Kapustin Yar, the atmosphere was both routine and unsettling. The days followed strict schedules, but the nights carried a sense of being watched. Patrols along the perimeter often reported strange lights just beyond the fences, lights that moved too smoothly to be flares and too unpredictably to be aircraft. Though officially ignored, these sightings etched themselves into memory. Even decades later, veterans would recall them in hushed voices. The Cold War demanded secrecy, and the Soviet Union excelled at maintaining it. Yet secrecy also bred legends. The less people were allowed to know, the more they imagined. Kapustin Yar became more than a testing ground. It became a mystery woven into the landscape of the steppe. Those who worked there felt they were part of something historic, but also something hidden, as though beneath the rockets and missiles there lay a deeper secret waiting to be uncovered. In the early 1960s, Kapustin Yar's role expanded even further. It was no longer just a testing ground for rockets. It became a central hub for experiments that blurred the line between science and secrecy. New facilities rose from the flat earth, guarded by watchtowers and surrounded by layers of barbed wire. Deep underground, reinforced bunkers were constructed to withstand not only the force of explosions, but also the gaze of foreign satellites. For the Soviet Union, this was the beating heart of technological ambition. Yet, alongside these visible projects, the whispers of stranger undertakings only grew louder. Soldiers stationed at the base often noticed convoys arriving under the cover of darkness. The vehicles carried large containers, escorted by armed guards, and were directed straight into underground hangars. No one outside the highest ranks ever saw what was inside, but speculation ran rampant. Some believed they were advanced prototypes of missiles or aircraft. Others thought they were things not designed by human hands. Local villagers noticed unusual patterns as well. They described nights when the horizon glowed with colours unlike any rocket launch. Soft blues, pulsing reds, and sudden flashes of white that left no sound behind. These displays were different from the fiery arcs of missiles. They seemed deliberate, as if something intelligent was moving through the sky. Livestock reacted violently to these nights. Horses refused to move, dogs howled until dawn, and cattle stampeded across fields for no visible reason. For the villagers, these were signs of something unnatural. For the soldiers, they were reminders that Kapustin Yar was not an ordinary assignment. Western intelligence followed every possible lead. Reports surfaced suggesting that Soviet radar installations at Kapustin Yar had tracked unidentified craft performing maneuvers far beyond human capability. These accounts never appeared in official Soviet documents, but fragments of them slipped into declassified files years later. The mystery deepened when retired personnel, decades after their service, cautiously spoke of things they could not explain. Strange metallic objects retrieved from crash sites, materials that resisted cutting or melting, and orders to seal everything away under strictest secrecy. The environment itself seemed to carry a weight of unease. The steppe, normally vast and quiet, took on an atmosphere of watchfulness. Soldiers on night patrol described the sensation of being observed from above, even when the sky appeared empty. The wind carried whispers, and the silence between rocket tests felt charged, as though waiting for something to break it. Kapustin Yar had become more than a military site. It had become a landscape of both achievement and fear, where each successful test brought pride. But every unexplained light in the sky added a new layer to the legend of Russia's Area 51. The year 1961 marked a turning point, not only for the Soviet Union with Yuri Gagarin's historic flight, but also for Kapustin Yar. While the world celebrated the first human in space, the base continued its work in silence, hidden from the public eye. New programs were initiated, some connected to space exploration, others shrouded in deeper secrecy. To the soldiers stationed there, the atmosphere grew heavier. Rumours of unusual experiments spread across the barracks, stories of recovered objects stored in locked chambers underground. Men spoke of nights when entire sections of the base were sealed off, with guards ordered to shoot intruders on sight. Trucks arrived with cargo under tarpaulin covers, always accompanied by senior officers whose faces betrayed no explanation. Beyond the perimeter, villagers noticed the sky acting strangely. Bright formations of lights would drift slowly across the steppe, unlike any known aircraft. Witnesses described these lights as silent and coordinated, as if part of a larger pattern. Some claimed the lights reacted to human presence, pausing or shifting when watched too closely. Though officially dismissed, such accounts lingered in memory for years. Western analysts kept their focus on Kapustin Yar as well. Reconnaissance photographs revealed not just missile silos, but oddly shaped constructions, some resembling domes or elongated hangars. Intelligence agencies debated their purpose. Were they protecting advanced rockets? Or were they hiding something not meant to be seen at all? Inside the base, the culture of secrecy was absolute. Young soldiers quickly learned that curiosity was dangerous. Asking the wrong question could end a career. Orders were followed without hesitation, and details were left unexplained. A guard might be told to stand watch outside a sealed hangar for 12 hours, never knowing what lay inside. Another might escort a convoy across the steppe, forbidden from looking beneath the covers, yet the legends persisted. Patrols reported sudden failures of radio equipment when strange lights appeared overhead. Radar operators noted unexplained targets moving at incredible speed, only to vanish moments later. These incidents were never acknowledged in official reports, but those who experienced them never forgot. For the villagers nearby, the land felt increasingly unnatural. Livestock would scatter without reason, shadows moved strangely across the fields, and silence would descend so suddenly it left even seasoned shepherds uneasy. To them, Kapustin Yar was not just a base. It was a place where the natural order seemed distorted. By the mid-1960s, the site's reputation was firmly established. It was where science, secrecy, and mystery collided, where rockets climbed into the heavens while unexplained phenomena played out above the same skies. For those who lived and worked there, it was impossible to ignore the feeling that Kapustin Yar was holding on to something the world was never meant to fully know. Through the late 1960s, Kapustin Yar was no longer just a military outpost hidden in the steppe. It had become a place surrounded by myth. Soldiers who rotated in and out carried stories back to their hometowns, quiet tales shared only with trusted friends. Some spoke of objects in the sky that defied explanation, glowing spheres that hovered silently for minutes before darting away at impossible speeds. Others recalled strange orders, sections of the base abruptly sealed, patrols doubled, and sudden restrictions that suggested something unusual had been discovered. The villagers nearby had their own stories. Farmers reported finding scorched circles in their fields, patches where grass refused to grow for months afterward. At night, shepherds noticed their flocks scattering in panic, even when no rockets were scheduled to launch. Bright lights appeared on the horizon, silent and smooth, sometimes hovering low enough to illuminate the earth below. To them, these were not accidents of military tests. They felt like visitations. Inside the base, secrecy deepened. Technicians were occasionally reassigned without explanation, sent into underground chambers for work they never spoke of afterward. Some returned pale and shaken, offering no details to their comrades. Guards noticed convoys moving deeper into the facility, carrying sealed containers with escorts that included not only soldiers but also men in civilian clothes, likely high-ranking scientists. Western intelligence remained intensely curious. Reconnaissance photographs revealed strange geometric layouts on the ground, structures that looked less like missile pads and more like testing sites for unknown technologies. Reports from defectors fueled speculation, hinting that the Soviets had recovered materials from unidentified craft. Though impossible to confirm, the idea added fuel to the mystery. Perhaps Kapustin Yar was more than just a weapons range. For the soldiers, life carried on under constant tension. Training drills, patrols, and endless hours of duty filled their days, but the sense of unease was always present. They felt that what they guarded went far beyond ordinary weapons. Even the air seemed different, charged, restless, filled with the sensation of unseen movement. Villagers described how animals sensed it too. Dogs barked at empty skies, horses froze without reason, and birds avoided flying directly over the restricted area. By the dawn of the 1970s, Kapustin Yar had earned its nickname as Russia's Area 51. It was a place of technological triumphs, but also of shadows, where legends and reality intertwined so tightly that few could separate them. The rockets launched there carried the ambitions of a superpower, but above those same skies, something else moved, something that still defied explanation. The 1970s brought new layers of mystery to Kapustin Yar. Officially, the site continued its role as a testing ground for intermediate-range missiles and experimental technologies. New hangars appeared on the horizon, more silos were dug into the earth, and the perimeter grew tighter. For outsiders, the location remained a blank spot on maps, but those living nearby could not ignore the growing strangeness of the region. Villagers began to speak of nights when the sky was alive with silent motion. Pale orbs hovered above the horizon, gliding slowly before vanishing in an instant. At other times, bright flashes lit the clouds from within, with no thunder to follow. The light seemed almost aware of observers, shifting direction or dimming when watched too closely. To locals, these were not the usual rocket tests. They were something entirely different. For the soldiers inside the base, the sense of secrecy had become routine. Every action was controlled, every question discouraged. Still, whispers moved quietly among the ranks. Radar operators claimed that unidentified objects appeared on their screens with impossible speeds, sometimes outpacing any known aircraft. When they tried to track them, the signals vanished without a trace. Patrols reported equipment failing at the very moment strange lights appeared in the sky, radios going silent until the lights disappeared. Some guards remembered convoys moving under the cover of night, their cargo hidden beneath heavy tarps. Entire sectors of the base would be locked down, with armed escorts blocking access even to regular personnel. Those who worked nearby sensed the weight of these operations, but knew better than to ask. Meanwhile, Western intelligence agencies focused more attention than ever on Kapustin Yar. Satellite imagery revealed vast underground networks, entrances carved into the earth that suggested large-scale storage or research. Analysts debated whether these were purely for missile development, or whether they hid something extraordinary. A handful of declassified reports hinted at encounters with unidentified craft over southern Russia, and Kapustin Yar was often named as the centre of activity. The villagers surrounding the area noticed how nature itself seemed to change. Livestock refused to graze near certain patches of land. Crops failed in neat circular patterns, leaving behind barren soil. Some locals believed the earth itself was scarred by forces beyond their understanding. Soldiers, years later, would admit that they felt uneasy during their service there. It was not only the rockets, not only the secrecy, but the constant awareness of something unseen, watching from above. Kapustin Yar had become a place where science and the unexplained overlapped, a crossroads of human ambition and mysteries beyond comprehension. And as the decade moved forward, the legends only grew stronger. By the early 1980s, Kapustin Yar stood as one of the most secretive places in the Soviet Union. Generations of soldiers had already served their terms there, leaving behind a trail of quiet stories that only deepened the site's legend. While the world outside was witnessing the tensions of the Cold War, those stationed on the steppe lived within a zone where reality often blurred with rumour. At the surface level, daily life seemed ordinary for a restricted military base. Drills, maintenance of equipment, constant security checks. Yet, beneath this routine, strange events continued to unsettle those who paid attention. Guards told of shifts when the sky would suddenly brighten with white light. Though no rockets were scheduled to launch, the glow would hang above the horizon for several minutes before dissolving silently, leaving behind nothing but uneasy silence. Radar operators confirmed odd disturbances too. Blips appeared in tight formations, flying at speeds that no known jet could achieve. Sometimes these targets hovered for long stretches before vanishing altogether. Reports were filed but never acknowledged, and those who pressed for answers were reminded of their duty to remain silent. Villagers surrounding the base felt the weight of the mysteries as well. Farmers remembered nights when fields were bathed in a cold blue glow, strong enough to cast shadows but without any sound. Some even claimed to see large dark shapes outlined against the stars drifting slowly before disappearing behind the clouds. To them, Kapustin Yar was no longer just a military site. It was a place where the ordinary rules of the world no longer applied. Western intelligence, too, noted anomalies. Reconnaissance photographs showed newly built structures resembling massive domes, shielded by earthworks. Analysts speculated they could house experimental aircraft or advanced radar systems, but others believed something stranger was being stored. Theories spread in both east and west, hinting at recovered technology, objects not made by human hands. Soldiers who later shared their memories spoke of sudden lockdowns, entire sectors closed with no warning. They described convoys arriving in the dead of night, guarded by armed escorts, carrying sealed containers that disappeared underground. Some remembered metallic fragments being handled with extreme caution, packed into crates and transported under strict secrecy. The atmosphere inside the base was heavy with unspoken knowledge. Everyone sensed that not all projects were of earthly origin, yet no one dared to voice such thoughts aloud. By the time the 1980s drew to a close, Kapustin Yar had become a symbol not just of Soviet technological power, but of enduring mystery. Its rockets reached the skies, but its shadows hinted at secrets buried deep beneath the steppe, secrets that perhaps no one was meant to uncover. The final years of the 1980s brought dramatic changes to the Soviet Union, but inside Kapustin Yar the culture of secrecy remained as strong as ever. While much of the outside world was beginning to hear whispers of reform and openness, those stationed at the base still lived under rules written in silence and enforced with absolute precision. For many, it was as if time itself moved differently there. Guards rotated their shifts, technicians tended to the equipment, and rockets continued to thunder skyward. But beneath that surface routine were stories that hinted at deeper mysteries. One of the most repeated accounts from that decade involved sudden blackouts of communication. Entire systems would fail without warning, radios silent, power flickering across sectors of the base, just as strange lights appeared in the sky. Soldiers remembered the unease of standing watch in total silence, their equipment useless, while glowing objects hovered motionless above the horizon. When power returned, no explanation was given, and the events were erased from official records. In the villages beyond the fences, families began to speak more openly about their own encounters. Children pointed to glowing spheres drifting across the night sky, while older residents recalled seeing triangular shapes silhouetted against the stars. Some farmers described waking to find perfect circles burned into their fields, the soil hardened as if by immense heat, yet no debris or rockets were ever discovered nearby. These stories passed from household to household, becoming part of the folklore of the region. Western satellites captured their own mysteries. Analysts in intelligence rooms puzzled over photographs that revealed unusual geometric layouts carved into the earth, patterns of runways, strange dome-like structures, and networks of underground entrances. To many, these resembled far more than a simple missile base. Reports circulated in classified circles, suggesting Kapustin Yar might house research into recovered technology of unknown origin. Soldiers who served during this time remembered the tension clearly. They spoke of entire nights locked inside their barracks as convoys arrived in silence, headlights covered, moving toward restricted sectors of the facility. Crates were offloaded under heavy guard and vanished into underground chambers. None of the lower-ranking men knew what they contained, but all understood they were forbidden to ask. The 1980s ended with the Soviet Union in crisis, yet Kapustin Yar continued to exist outside ordinary history, shielded by its walls of secrecy. To those who lived near it, the site remained both a source of fear and fascination. To the soldiers, it was a duty that carried an unspoken weight, and to the outside world, it was still Russia's hidden shadow, a place where rockets and riddles shared the same sky. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 brought uncertainty across the country, yet Kapustin Yar remained shrouded in the same secrecy it had carried for decades. While political structures crumbled and new realities emerged, the base continued its hidden operations, as if untouched by the outside world. For the local villagers, life grew harder. Economies failed, shops emptied, and old routines faltered, but the mysterious lights in the sky never stopped appearing. If anything, some claim they became more frequent during those years of transition. Farmers told of nights when glowing spheres hovered low over their fields, humming softly, casting long shadows across the steppe. Others swore they saw enormous dark shapes blocking the stars, drifting silently before vanishing. To them, it felt as if the collapse of the Soviet Union had unleashed something that had always been there, hidden behind strict military order. Soldiers stationed at Kapustin Yar during this turbulent period remembered the atmosphere vividly. Resources were scarce, equipment often outdated, yet the most secretive projects continued without pause. Convoys still arrived at night, cargo covered tightly beneath tarpaulins. Entire sectors were still closed with no explanation, and armed guards enforced silence. Many of the younger conscripts wondered what they were truly protecting in a country that was itself falling apart. Western intelligence agencies watched closely. With secrecy less absolute than before, more fragments of information began to leak. Declassified documents hinted at unidentified craft being tracked by radar over southern Russia, and Kapustin Yar's name appeared more than once. Satellite imagery showed new underground construction, even in an era when budgets were collapsing everywhere else. Analysts debated what could possibly justify such efforts during a time of national crisis. Meanwhile, villagers near the site noted that nature itself seemed unsettled. Cattle refused to graze in certain areas, and strange burn marks appeared in geometric shapes across the land. Some described sudden surges of heat in the air, followed by silence so deep it pressed against the ears. For them, these were not the ordinary side effects of rocket launches. They were signs of something far stranger. Soldiers who later spoke about those years often admitted that fear was constant. Not the fear of enemies beyond the fences, but of the unknown forces above their heads. The Cold War had ended, but Kapustin Yar remained a place where secrets clung tightly to the earth, and where the night sky still carried questions no one dared answer. The 1990s were years of chaos for Russia, but inside Kapustin Yar the silence of secrecy remained unbroken. Soldiers who served there described a world cut off from the turbulence of everyday life. While towns and cities across the country struggled with shortages, the base still received convoys at night, still launched rockets into the dark skies, and still locked away entire sectors without explanation. To the young conscripts, the feeling was strange. They were part of something important, yet they were never told exactly what. Villagers nearby noticed unusual patterns that continued to unsettle them. In some fields, grass stopped growing altogether, leaving behind barren circles of scorched soil. At other times, the air shimmered with heat on cold nights, as if an invisible force was moving across the land. Dogs refused to cross certain paths leading toward the perimeter fence, and shepherds whispered that the earth itself seemed restless beneath their feet. Western satellites picked up more anomalies too. Despite Russia's financial struggles, Kapustin Yar showed signs of expansion. New underground tunnels were identified, and structures resembling domes or large hangars were added. Analysts were baffled. How could such projects continue at a time when so much of the military was collapsing? Some speculated that the work was connected to secret international cooperation, while others suggested it involved technologies that demanded protection no matter the cost. Among the soldiers, stories spread quietly. Radar operators reported unexplained targets that seemed to toy with them, moving at speeds that blurred the screens before vanishing without a trace. Guards spoke of convoys escorted by officers whose faces they never saw again. Some remembered being ordered to patrol areas where the silence was so intense it pressed against their ears, broken only by the low hum of unseen machinery beneath the ground. In the villages, the legends deepened. Children grew up hearing stories from their grandparents about glowing spheres and silent triangles in the sky. Farmers spoke of nights when the stars themselves seemed to rearrange, forming patterns before returning to their natural order. For many, Kapustin Yar was not just a base. It was a forbidden neighbour, a place that carried secrets older and stranger than rockets. By the close of the decade, the world outside may have changed, but inside those fences the mystery endured. Kapustin Yar remained Russia's Area 51, a place where the line between military progress and the unknown blurred into something no one dared fully explain. The dawn of the 2000s brought new leadership to Russia and a renewed sense of order, but Kapustin Yar did not change in ways the public could see. For most citizens, the base barely existed. It was a name occasionally whispered in connection with missile tests, nothing more. Yet for those living nearby, the strangeness of the place only grew more pronounced. Farmers continued to find scorched impressions in their fields, often circular, sometimes arranged in patterns that looked too deliberate to be natural. Shepherds noticed their animals panicking in the middle of calm nights, eyes fixed on something unseen above. Some villagers began to avoid travelling near the perimeter altogether, claiming that even the air felt heavy and unnatural there. Soldiers serving at the base spoke of renewed activity. Despite the country's economic struggles, new construction rose from the steppe, and fresh underground entrances appeared where only barren ground had been before. Convoys once again rolled in under cover of darkness, headlights blacked out, escorted by vehicles armed to the teeth. Entire sections of the facility were sealed for weeks at a time, accessible only to personnel carrying the highest clearance. Those excluded were left to wonder what was happening beneath their feet. Western analysts remained fascinated. Satellite imagery showed patterns on the ground that sparked speculation. Long parallel tracks that did not resemble runways, enormous domes camouflaged with soil, and strange formations that looked like testing grids. Intelligence reports suggested the base might be conducting experiments beyond conventional missiles. Some even revived theories that Kapustin Yar housed materials not of human origin. Soldiers from that era remembered technology failures at the strangest times. Radios cut out, vehicles stalled, and even watches stopped when strange lights appeared in the sky. Guards admitted feeling watched during night patrols, as though invisible eyes tracked their every step. Though forbidden to discuss such things, these memories lingered long after their service ended. For the villagers, the legends became part of their identity. Grandparents told children never to wander too close, warning of lights that could follow them home. Hunters swore they had seen objects land silently in the distance, only to vanish by morning without leaving tracks. Some believed the earth itself around Kapustin Yar was changed forever, scarred by forces beyond their comprehension. By the middle of the decade, Kapustin Yar was firmly rooted in the imagination of those who studied mysteries. To believers, it was the centre of Russia's hidden knowledge, a counterpart to Area 51, where the unknown was not only studied, but guarded fiercely. To skeptics, it remained a heavily restricted test site where secrecy bred myths. But to those who lived and served there, it was something more, an enigma wrapped in silence, where every night sky carried questions that no one dared to answer. As the 2000s moved forward, Kapustin Yar continued to live in two realities, one visible to the world and another hidden in shadow. Officially, it was still described as a missile test range, a relic of the Cold War that had retained importance in modern defense programs. News outlets occasionally reported on launches showing fiery trails across the night sky. Yet behind those controlled displays, soldiers and villagers alike spoke of things that could not be explained so easily. Many who served at the base remembered the tension of sudden alerts that seemed disconnected from any known event. Sirens would sound, convoys would rush into secure hangars, and radar crews would work frantically before silence returned. When asked later, officers offered no explanation. To the rank and file, these episodes suggested encounters with forces not publicly acknowledged. Locals noticed their own patterns. Entire nights when the sky glowed faintly, not from rockets, but from strange arcs of light moving just above the horizon. Some described them as orbs that danced together in patterns, others as massive triangular shapes drifting silently across the stars. On more than one occasion, farmers claimed their fields were illuminated as if by daylight, though no aircraft were visible overhead. Intelligence agencies abroad tracked these reports with growing interest. Declassified documents revealed that Western satellites frequently passed over Kapustin Yar, capturing images of new underground entrances, unusual heat signatures, and geometric clearings etched into the steppe. Analysts debated whether these were connected to advanced weapons, or whether they hinted at something more extraordinary. Within the base, secrecy was heavier than ever. Young soldiers quickly learned that questions were dangerous. Orders were obeyed without discussion, whether they involved guarding sealed convoys, patrolling isolated areas, or escorting unknown cargo. Some admitted later that they felt as though they were protecting not just military secrets, but something far stranger, objects or technologies that belonged to another world entirely. Villagers told of how animals behaved unpredictably during these years. Dogs barked wildly at empty skies, horses froze mid-step, and birds seemed to avoid certain stretches of land. Farmers spoke of hearing low vibrations in the ground, as if machinery was working deep beneath the soil. For them, Kapustin Yar was less a military base than a living mystery, a neighbour whose presence shaped their lives in ways no one outside could understand. By the end of the decade, the site's legend was stronger than ever. Rockets still thundered into the sky, but those who lived nearby believed something else shared that space, something silent, elusive, and far beyond human design. The early 2010s brought new technology to the outside world. Faster internet, smartphones, and satellites capable of mapping the Earth in detail. Yet Kapustin Yar remained as mysterious as ever. While much of Russia opened to the flow of information, this isolated stretch of steppe stayed hidden behind layers of silence. Official reports mentioned occasional missile launches, but they revealed nothing of the activities that fueled decades of speculation. Villagers still noticed unexplained lights in the sky, often timed not with launches but with quiet nights when nothing was scheduled. They spoke of spheres glowing in colours that shifted slowly, fading from orange to white or green to blue. These objects moved deliberately, never flickering like flares or flashing like aircraft. Sometimes they hovered motionless, sometimes they darted away so quickly that the eye could barely follow. Farmers continued to find scorched patches of land that resisted new growth, while hunters described encounters with strange hums in the air, vibrations that seemed to come from the ground itself. For the soldiers stationed there, the daily grind of duty masked an underlying tension. They carried out patrols, manned radar stations, and guarded convoys, but the feeling that they were protecting something extraordinary never left. Some recalled entire nights spent under blackout conditions, with all lights extinguished, as if the base itself was hiding from something above. Others remembered cargo being offloaded into underground facilities with extreme security, escorted by officers whose authority exceeded even the commanders on site. Western analysts noticed the anomalies as well. Satellite imagery showed newly expanded underground complexes, entrances disguised with soil, and heat signatures suggesting constant activity below the surface. Intelligence reports debated whether these were related to advanced missile systems or to research that had no public explanation. The nickname Russia's Area 51 became more common in foreign media, each article adding layers to the myth. Inside the nearby villages, the stories grew more personal. Parents warned children not to wander near the fences. Elders spoke of nights when the stars seemed to shift, forming patterns before dissolving again. Hunters whispered of shapes blocking out the sky, vast and silent, gliding beyond the perimeter. By this time, Kapustin Yar had lived through more than 6 decades of secrecy. It was no longer only a Cold War relic, but a living legend, a place where the boundary between human technology and the unknown remained deliberately blurred. For those who served there, it was a posting they would never forget. For those who lived nearby, it was a presence that shaped their nights and haunted their imaginations. By the mid-2010s, the legend of Kapustin Yar had taken firm root in both Russian folklore and Western imagination. The name appeared in documentaries, books, and speculative articles, always paired with phrases like Russia's Area 51 or the Soviet UFO base. To the outside world, it was a mystery wrapped in the desert-like steppe, a place that seemed frozen in secrecy, while everything else around it modernized. Inside Russia, however, few official voices acknowledged it at all. Missile launches were still announced occasionally in dry government press releases, but no details beyond dates and general regions were ever shared. Villagers surrounding the site continued to witness odd events. Some described entire skies lit by a diffuse glow, pale green or electric blue, spreading across the horizon with no sound and no visible source. Others remembered seeing long dark forms drifting silently in the night, massive enough to blot out the stars for several seconds. Farmers told of mornings when they found strange metallic fragments scattered across their fields, fragments that crumbled to dust when touched, leaving no trace after a few days. Soldiers serving their terms during this era reported a blend of routine and unease. Daily tasks seemed simple: patrols, checkpoints, guarding perimeters, but unexpected orders would arrive without warning. Entire sectors would be sealed, all personnel restricted, while convoys rolled past with cargo hidden beneath heavy tarps. Some soldiers recalled feeling intense static in the air during these lockdowns, as if invisible energy pulsed through the ground. Equipment failures remained common. Radios went silent, vehicles stalled without reason, and watches stopped only to resume minutes later. Veterans would later recall these events with quiet voices, suggesting they felt less like malfunctions and more like interference from something beyond their understanding. Abroad, interest in Kapustin Yar grew sharper. Analysts noticed consistent patterns of satellite activity over the region, as if other nations were carefully monitoring the site. Declassified reports mentioned unidentified aerial encounters in southern Russia, fueling speculation that the base was central to the study of unknown technology. The more secrecy surrounded the site, the more people believed there was something extraordinary within. For those living nearby, the atmosphere of mystery was part of everyday life. Parents told children not to wander close to the fences. Hunters avoided certain clearings, claiming the silence there was unnatural. Travellers who passed by on lonely roads sometimes reported glowing objects following their vehicles before vanishing into the night. By the close of the decade, Kapustin Yar was as enigmatic as ever. Rockets still thundered upward from its silos, yet above those same skies moved something different. Silent, elusive, and never explained. Entering the late 2010s, Kapustin Yar remained a paradox, an active military base hidden in plain sight, yet spoken of more in whispers and speculation than in official reports. Decades had passed since its founding, yet the aura surrounding it had only grown darker, deeper, and harder to dismiss. For the villagers nearby, life followed the same rhythm of seasons, but with a constant backdrop of strangeness. They spoke of nights when their animals panicked without reason, stampeding or refusing to move, even though the skies looked calm. Yet when the villagers stepped outside, they often noticed faint pulsating lights above the horizon. These lights did not behave like rockets or aircraft. They moved deliberately, sometimes stopping for long stretches before shifting silently to another part of the sky. Farmers found new scars in their land, circles of scorched earth, sometimes small, sometimes stretching dozens of feet across. The soil within these circles hardened strangely, resisting ploughs and shovels as if baked by an invisible force. Grass refused to grow there for years, leaving behind haunting marks of something that had passed. Soldiers at the base described a mixture of monotony and sudden intensity. Routine filled their days, checking gates, monitoring radar, standing long watches on the barren steppe. Then, without warning, unusual events would erupt. Convoys rolled in at night, guarded by heavily armed escorts, their cargo sealed away before anyone could glimpse its contents. Entire areas of the base would be placed on lockdown, radios silenced, patrol routes doubled. Even the most loyal conscripts felt the weight of secrets pressing around them. Western observers continued their watch. Satellite images revealed new underground networks carved into the earth, heat signatures that flared in odd places, and geometric formations visible from above. Analysts debated endlessly. Were these expansions for missile testing, or signs of research into technologies far outside conventional science? Reports of unidentified aerial encounters in southern Russia fueled the theories further, and in many accounts, Kapustin Yar was always at the centre. Veterans who had served there remained reluctant to share details, but fragments slipped through. They spoke of radar anomalies that showed objects moving faster than anything man-made, or hovering with absolute stillness despite high winds. Some admitted feeling an uncanny sense of being watched during patrols, as if something above studied them silently. For villagers, the legends became almost ritual. Parents warned children to avoid wandering too far at night. Hunters spoke of giant shadows blotting out the stars, moving soundlessly across the sky. To them, the base was no longer just a neighbour. It was a presence, a force embedded in the land itself. By the time the decade closed, Kapustin Yar remained wrapped in silence. Rockets continued to climb into the skies, but the questions lingered heavier than ever. Was it only a military range, or was it the guardian of something far stranger, something still waiting to be revealed? As the 2020s began, Kapustin Yar still stood as a fortress of silence. The modern world was more connected than ever, with satellites, drones, and online communities spreading information instantly. Yet this remote base in the Astrakhan steppe managed to keep its secrets intact. Officially, It remained a test range for missiles and aerospace experiments, a relic of the Cold War that continued to serve strategic purposes. But those who lived nearby, and those who had once served there, knew there was more to the story. Villagers continued to report strange lights in the sky. Sometimes they were single glowing spheres, other times multiple objects moving in formation. They glided silently, shifted direction with impossible precision, and vanished in ways that defied normal flight. Farmers claimed they could predict these appearances by the behaviour of their animals. Dogs would whine and hide, cattle would grow restless, and birds would scatter suddenly before the lights emerged. The land itself carried scars as well. Patches of hardened soil appeared in strange shapes, resisting growth year after year. Hunters told of places where their compasses spun erratically, and where silence pressed so heavily it felt unnatural. To the villagers, these were signs that something buried deep beneath the earth was active, humming quietly in the dark. For soldiers serving their terms, the atmosphere remained a mixture of routine discipline and unspoken tension. Many remembered being ordered to escort convoys arriving at night, headlights covered, cargo hidden under heavy tarps. The containers disappeared into underground facilities, always under the supervision of officers no one recognised. Some soldiers recalled nights when entire sectors of the base were sealed, and the air itself seemed charged, filled with static that prickled their skin. Abroad, Kapustin Yar's legend grew stronger. Intelligence analysts noted persistent satellite monitoring of the area, and declassified reports hinted at unidentified aerial encounters across southern Russia. Whenever these incidents were mapped, the location of the base appeared close by. The Western press revived the old nickname, Russia's Area 51, reminding the world that secrecy and silence often conceal more than technology. By now, Kapustin Yar had survived the collapse of an empire, decades of suspicion, and endless speculation. Rockets still launched from its silos, carrying the ambitions of a superpower. But above those same skies, something else seemed to move, silent, elusive, and never explained. For the villagers, the soldiers, and the watchers abroad, the question remained the same. Was Kapustin Yar only a place of weapons and science? Or was it the keeper of mysteries far beyond human design? In recent years, stories surrounding Kapustin Yar have not faded, but instead taken on a new life in the digital age. With social media and forums dedicated to mysteries, villagers' accounts that once remained local now spread worldwide, fueling curiosity far beyond the steppe. Videos appear online showing glowing orbs drifting across the night sky, sometimes filmed by trembling hands, sometimes blurred and distant. Skeptics dismiss them as drones or reflections, but for locals they are simply the same phenomena their grandparents once described. Unchanged across decades, soldiers stationed at the base in the 2020s described an odd balance of modernization and tradition. Surveillance systems were upgraded, drones patrolled the perimeter, and digital controls replaced older consoles. Yet the old practices remained. Night convoys under heavy guard, sealed hangars, and strict orders that forbade questions. Even with new technology, secrecy was enforced with the same iron silence that had defined Kapustin Yar since its birth. Some servicemen recalled entire nights when alarms blared without explanation. Radar screens lit with unidentified signals, objects moving faster than any aircraft, then disappearing suddenly. Crews were ordered to record nothing and continue as if nothing had happened. For the lower ranks, it was clear that not all information was meant to reach them. Villagers, meanwhile, told of strange effects on the land itself. Crops in certain areas grew twisted, with stalks bending in spirals. Hunters claimed they stumbled on patches of forest where the silence was absolute, no birds or insects stirring, as though the environment had been muted. In those same places they sometimes found metallic fragments that disintegrated to powder when touched. Abroad, researchers and enthusiasts continued to debate what really hid behind the fences. Some pointed to advanced missile technology, others insisted that fragments of non-human craft were being studied in underground labs. A few even speculated that the base was more than a military site. It was a gateway, a place where experiments touched boundaries not fully understood. For those living near it, however, Kapustin Yar was not theory or speculation. It was the glow on the horizon that unsettled their nights, the heavy silence that pressed down on their fields, and the constant reminder that something vast and secret moved just beyond their reach. As the decade advanced, one truth remained. The mystery of Kapustin Yar was as alive as ever, refusing to fade even in an age of instant information. The more time passes, the more Kapustin Yar seems to exist in two parallel worlds. In one, it is a functioning military base, a place where rockets are launched and defense projects are tested under official supervision. In the other, it is a symbol of the unexplained, a place where decades of strange sightings and rumours form a shadow history. For villagers in the surrounding steppe, the shadow is the only one they know. They recall nights when beams of pale light seem to stretch from the sky to the ground, lasting only seconds before fading. Farmers tell of fields where the soil hardened overnight, as though scorched by something invisible. Hunters whisper of vast, dark shapes that glided above the tree line, blocking out stars in silence before dissolving into the night. For the soldiers stationed there, the experience remains a mixture of duty and unease. Patrols follow strict routines, but unexpected orders always loom. Convoys still arrive at night, headlights dimmed, cargo sealed. Some soldiers have spoken of hearing low mechanical hums coming from underground even when no visible activity occurred. Radios crackled with static at odd intervals, and electronic equipment sometimes failed without reason. To them, Kapustin Yar was not simply a posting. It was a place where the ordinary rules of reality felt thinner, as if something beyond human understanding lingered close by. Abroad, intelligence agencies continue to keep the base under quiet watch. Satellites still track new construction, heat signatures, and odd geometric markings on the ground. Reports of unidentified aerial phenomena in southern Russia are still occasionally noted, and the proximity to Kapustin Yar often fuels speculation. While governments remain silent, independent researchers and writers continue to call the site Russia's Area 51, drawing comparisons that never fade. By now, the legend has outgrown its origins. The Cold War may be long over, but the mystery has survived. For the people who live within sight of its fences, the base is not just part of the past, but part of daily life, an unseen presence shaping their nights and filling their imaginations. For soldiers, it remains a place of unspoken orders and unanswered questions. And for the wider world, it is a reminder that some secrets resist even the relentless exposure of modern times. Kapustin Yar stands where it always has, silent in the steppe, its rockets reaching upward while mysteries linger all around it. The silence of the steppe around Kapustin Yar is deceptive. By day, the land stretches endlessly, flat and empty, with only the winds breaking the stillness. But by night, the atmosphere changes. Villagers who have lived there all their lives say the darkness carries a weight, as though the air itself is watching. On certain nights, a faint glow rises behind the horizon, not fiery like a missile launch, but cold, shimmering, and silent. Farmers wake to find perfect rings etched into their fields, circles where grass refuses to grow. Dogs bark at empty skies, their ears flattened, their eyes locked on something unseen. Horses bolt in panic without cause, refusing to calm until dawn. To those who live there, these are reminders that Kapustin Yar is not only about rockets, it is about something deeper, something that touches even the land around it. Soldiers who pass through the base echo this sense of unease. Many describe long stretches of monotony, followed suddenly by events that defy explanation. Entire shifts spent guarding sealed hangars, convoys arriving at midnight under blackout conditions, or sudden orders to clear an area with no explanation. Some recall standing watch when the sky erupted in silent flashes, vast arcs of light that faded as quickly as they appeared. Their radios filled with static, compasses spun, and for a few minutes it felt as if reality itself had shifted. Abroad, researchers collect these accounts, piecing them together with satellite imagery and old intelligence reports. They argue that Kapustin Yar is more than just a testing range. It is a repository of the unexplained. Some believe fragments of non-human craft are hidden in its underground vaults. Others suggest the site is used for experiments that push against the edges of human understanding. Officially, nothing is ever admitted, yet the pattern remains. Every decade brings new sightings, new anomalies, and new layers to the legend. The steppe remembers, even if the files remain sealed. By now, Kapustin Yar has become more than a secret base. It is a story told across generations. For the villagers, it is the glow on the horizon that unsettles their nights. For the soldiers, it is the memory of duties carried out without answers. For the world, it is a symbol of how mystery endures, no matter how much time passes or how many rockets climb into the skies. The deeper one looks into the story of Kapustin Yar, the more it resembles layers of a puzzle, each generation adding its own pieces. In the early years, secrecy surrounded rockets and captured German technology. Later, whispers of unidentified objects joined the narrative, and by now, the legend has become inseparable from the identity of the place itself. Villagers say it is impossible to live near the base and not feel its presence. They describe nights when the sky hums faintly, a vibration in the air that rattles windows yet comes from no visible source. Farmers recall mornings when the soil is warm to the touch, even after a cold night, as if something had passed overhead and left its energy behind. Hunters tell of being followed by strange lights that hovered just out of reach, before vanishing the instant they tried to approach. Soldiers stationed there speak of duty carried out in silence. They remember being ordered to guard perimeters where nothing visible seemed worth protecting, yet the sense of importance was undeniable. Some recall convoys led by officers they had never seen before, men who gave no names and spoke in clipped, precise tones. The cargo always disappeared underground, into chambers that remained sealed even from the regular personnel. Occasionally rumours leaked into the outside world. Reports of radar anomalies, sightings by pilots, or unexplained flashes over southern Russia made their way into foreign newspapers. Analysts tried to piece together patterns, always circling back to Kapustin Yar. The nickname Russia's Area 51 became more than a phrase. It became the lens through which outsiders viewed the base. The landscape itself seems to carry the memory of what happens there. Patches of land remain barren year after year, shaped into strange patterns. Animals avoid those places instinctively. Even travellers passing through the region speak of sudden feelings of disorientation, as if the earth beneath them shifted slightly out of alignment. By now, the legend has grown too large to be dismissed entirely. The official silence only strengthens it. Kapustin Yar is not simply a missile test site, nor only a symbol of secrecy. It has become something else entirely, a mirror for humanity's curiosity, fear and wonder about what might lie beyond. To live near it is to accept the presence of the unknown. To serve there is to carry questions that may never find answers. And to hear of it from afar is to feel the tug of a mystery that has resisted explanation for more than 70 years. The 2020s brought new attention to unexplained aerial phenomena across the world, as governments began releasing long classified reports. While most of these documents focused on incidents over the United States and the oceans, whispers quickly resurfaced about Kapustin Yar. If Western militaries had tracked unidentified craft, surely Russia had as well. And what better place to study them than its most secretive test range? In the villages surrounding the base, little seemed to change. Families still watched the skies with wary eyes, and stories continued to pass from one generation to the next. A farmer might recall seeing glowing shapes gliding silently over his fields, just as his father had described decades earlier. Children dared each other to sneak closer to the fences, though none stayed long. Some spoke of hearing a low pulsing hum that seemed to rise from the ground itself, making their chests vibrate. For soldiers stationed there, the sense of mystery was part of daily life. Routine duties filled their schedules: patrols, guard rotations, equipment checks. But unusual orders always lurked nearby. Entire areas of the base would suddenly be closed, with only select personnel allowed inside. Convoys arrived at night, cargo hidden, escorts alert and silent. Some conscripts reported that their radios went dead whenever strange lights appeared in the sky, as though the air itself was interfering. Abroad, researchers and enthusiasts debated furiously. Satellite imagery revealed fresh construction underground, entrances camouflaged with earth, and heat signatures that seemed to flicker in odd rhythms. Some claimed these pointed to advanced weapons testing, but others argued they were consistent with research into exotic technology. In online forums, Kapustin Yar was frequently named as the world's most overlooked mystery, overshadowed by Nevada's famous desert base, but possibly even more secretive. The steppe itself seemed to carry an imprint of the unexplained. Hunters described walking into areas where no birds sang and no insects stirred, an unnatural silence that pressed heavily against the ears. Drivers on lonely roads reported glowing spheres pacing their vehicles, keeping perfect speed before darting away into the horizon. Each account added to the mosaic of legends. By now, Kapustin Yar was no longer only a relic of the Cold War. It was a living story, shaped not just by secrecy, but by generations of witnesses. Rockets still roared into the sky, but for many the greater mystery lay in the silent movements above them, the ones that never appeared in official reports, yet refused to disappear from memory. To understand the pull of Kapustin Yar, one must see how it weaves itself into the identity of those who live in its shadow. Villagers speak of it with both fear and fascination, as though the base has become part of the landscape, no different from the winds of the steppe or the cycles of the seasons. For some, it is simply a neighbour, distant, silent, yet always there. For others, it is a source of endless unease. Farmers recall how their grandparents warned them never to work the fields at night, because the sky itself could change without warning. Stories told around kitchen tables describe glowing discs hovering just above the tree line, lighting the earth with a pale, cold glow before vanishing without a sound. Shepherds still whisper of animals refusing to graze near certain areas, staring nervously at spaces where nothing visible stood. Soldiers echo these experiences in their own way. Many describe the strangeness of serving in a place where official duties and unspoken mysteries overlapped. A guard shift might seem ordinary until a convoy appeared, escorted by officers who offered no explanation, their cargo disappearing into underground vaults. A radar operator might watch a screen light up with impossible targets, objects zigzagging faster than any known jet, only to be told to record nothing. These moments carve themselves into memory, even if they were never acknowledged in reports. Beyond Russia, the legend of Kapustin Yar spread through documentaries, books, and online forums. Researchers compared notes, linking decades of witness testimony to satellite images that showed strange earthworks and camouflage structures. For them, the base became a symbol of secrecy itself, a reminder that some places resist even the brightest spotlight. The land carries its own evidence. Circles of barren earth remain unchanged for years, their soil hardened as if by intense heat. Travellers report sudden surges of static on their radios when driving near the perimeter. Some even claim to feel watched, as if unseen eyes track their movements from above. The persistence of these accounts gives weight to the legend. The more the base hides behind silence, the more the outside world fills the gaps with questions. And perhaps that is the greatest power of Kapustin Yar. It reminds us that mystery still exists, even in an age where satellites map every corner of the globe. Rockets may continue to rise from its silos, but above those flames, the steppe sky still holds secrets that no official statement has ever dared to explain. Each decade adds a new layer to the story of Kapustin Yar, yet the heart of its mystery remains the same. The sense that what happens there cannot be explained by ordinary science alone. For the villagers nearby, it is a presence that shapes their nights. They speak of skies that shimmer faintly without a source, of fields that glow softly before dawn, and of sudden silences where no animal makes a sound. These are not one-time events but recurring patterns, passed down through generations as part of local memory. Soldiers stationed there tell similar stories, though in their language of duty and secrecy. A young recruit might describe nights when his compass spun wildly, or when the static in his radio grew so loud it drowned every voice. Another might recall being ordered to guard a hangar that never opened, yet from which strange humming sounds emerged deep underground. For many, the base was a place of contradictions, routine tasks carried out in an environment that constantly whispered of the extraordinary. Beyond Russia, the fascination has only grown. Researchers studying satellite images note new patterns carved into the Earth. Long lines, circular clearings, and domes buried beneath layers of soil. Analysts debate whether these belong to advanced missile projects or to something that cannot be placed neatly into military categories. Each unexplained structure adds fuel to speculation, making Kapustin Yar as much a legend in the West as it is in the villages nearby. Travellers through the steppe also leave their own accounts. Drivers on lonely roads tell of glowing orbs that followed their vehicles in silence, drifting parallel before vanishing into the horizon. Hunters describe stumbling into clearings where the air felt heavy and charged, as if some unseen energy had recently passed through. These experiences rarely reach official records, but they echo one another too closely to ignore. By the 2020s, the site is more than a relic of the Cold War. It has become a canvas onto which humanity projects its greatest questions. Are we alone? Have we already encountered evidence of something greater, hidden in underground chambers guarded by silence? Or is Kapustin Yar a reflection of our own fears and hopes, amplified by secrecy? Whatever the truth may be, one fact endures. Kapustin Yar refuses to fade. Its rockets may rise, its silos may remain active, but the mystery is larger than technology. It is a reminder that even in an age of endless information, the world can still hold secrets that resist explanation. Kapustin Yar has now existed for more than 70 years, yet the questions surrounding it remain as sharp as ever. Unlike other Cold War relics that faded into history, this site continues to generate new stories with each generation. Villagers who live nearby still treat the area with wary respect. They describe skies that sometimes glow with unnatural colours, green, orange or pale blue, without thunder, without rockets, only silence. Farmers wake to find patches of earth hardened into glass-like surfaces, circles that resist every attempt to plough or seed. Hunters recall being stopped in their tracks by humming vibrations that seem to rise from the ground itself. Soldiers echo these strange impressions in their own way. Many speak of serving long hours in isolation, watching endless fences and barren fields. Yet at unexpected moments, reality felt different. Convoys arrived at night with escorts that looked unfamiliar, their vehicles slipping into underground entrances hidden beneath layers of soil. Entire sectors of the base would shut down suddenly, with orders to keep away under threat of punishment. Some servicemen admitted feeling more like guardians of a mystery than defenders of a test range. Western analysts remain equally captivated. Satellite imagery reveals heat signatures where no visible structures exist, suggesting deep underground activity. Declassified intelligence reports continue to mention unidentified aerial phenomena in southern Russia, with Kapustin Yar often marked as a focal point. These fragments of evidence are enough to keep speculation alive, that the base hides something extraordinary, whether advanced weapons, recovered craft, or research that touches on forces we barely understand. For locals, however, the mystery is lived, not studied. They warn children not to wander near the fences, sharing stories of lights that follow travellers at night, Some families avoid certain roads altogether, claiming that vehicles stall there more often than anywhere else. The land itself seems to remember, carrying scars and silences that do not fade. Over time, Kapustin Yar has become more than a military installation. It is a symbol of how secrets endure, how silence feeds legend, and how some places resist the passage of time. To the outside world, it is Russia's Area 51, a shadowy counterpart to Nevada's desert. To those nearby, it is a neighbour both feared and respected. And to the soldiers who served there, it is a memory of unanswered questions, a chapter of life spent guarding mysteries that may never be spoken aloud. With each passing year, Kapustin Yar grows less like a military base and more like a legend stitched into the fabric of the steppe. Its fences still stand, its launch pads remain active, and official reports continue to describe it as a test range for rockets and weapons. Yet for those who live near it, the stories have never been about missiles alone. They speak of skies where lights appear without warning, drifting slowly before vanishing in silence. Farmers recount mornings when they find their fields marked by circles of scorched earth, soil fused into hard crusts as though touched by immense heat. These marks rarely fade, and some patches resist growth for years, leaving scars on the land. Soldiers who served at the base recall an atmosphere that was both ordinary and extraordinary. Guard duty, drills, and endless patrols filled their days, but at night the strangeness emerged. Radios filled with static, compasses spun, and equipment failed whenever pale lights hovered above the horizon. Convoys arrived under heavy escort, their cargo hidden, their destination always underground. Entire sectors would lock down suddenly, forbidding entry even to long-serving officers. Veterans admit they often felt like they were protecting more than weapons. They were protecting secrets that even they were not allowed to know. Western observers continue to track the site with satellites and analysis. They note underground entrances disguised beneath earthworks, unusual heat signatures, and patterns in the terrain that suggest more than simple military use. Intelligence reports highlight repeated sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena across southern Russia, many of them clustered around Kapustin Yar. These details fuel speculation that the site is still a hub for research into mysteries beyond conventional science. In the surrounding villages, the stories grow into folklore. Elders tell children about glowing orbs that follow travellers at night, or shadows that blot out the stars as they glide silently overhead. Hunters avoid certain clearings, convinced they are cursed, while families mark patches of barren soil as places never to be disturbed. Even travellers passing through report feelings of unease, moments when the silence feels heavier than the land itself. By now, Kapustin Yar is more than Russia's Area 51. It is a reminder that secrecy breeds legend, and that mystery can endure across generations. Rockets may rise from its silos, but the greater story lies in the silent skies above and the restless earth below. It stands as both a relic of the Cold War and a living riddle, one that refuses to be solved, no matter how much time passes. Over 70 years of silence have not erased the questions surrounding Kapustin Yar. Instead, the mystery has grown deeper, taking root in stories, memories, and countless fragments of rumour. Officially, the site remains a functioning range, launching rockets and testing systems. But for the people who live nearby, and for the soldiers who once walked its fences, the base has always been more than concrete and steel. Villagers still whisper of nights when the stars themselves seem to rearrange. They tell of triangular shadows moving slowly across the sky, blotting out constellations before vanishing into the darkness. Farmers speak of fields glowing faintly at midnight, only to find burned circles in the soil by morning. Some describe invisible forces pressing against their chests, vibrations felt in the air though no sound could be heard. Soldiers remember the tension of sudden alerts. A radar screen would light up with impossible blips, objects moving at thousands of miles per hour, stopping instantly, then darting away. Orders came swiftly. Record nothing, report nothing, continue as usual. Convoys rolled across the steppe at night, cargo sealed, escorted by silent officers who disappeared as quickly as they arrived. To those on duty, it was clear that some truths were never meant to be shared. Abroad, Kapustin Yar remains a subject of fascination. Analysts studying satellite imagery point to strange ground formations, domes buried beneath soil, networks of tunnels, and patterns that resemble testing grids unlike any conventional range. Each new photograph fuels speculation, adding to the legend that the base conceals technology far beyond human invention. Hunters and travellers tell their own stories. They describe entering clearings where silence is absolute, where not a single insect hums or bird sings. Drivers on lonely roads report glowing orbs pacing their vehicles before vanishing into the night. Families mark certain fields as forbidden, believing the land itself holds secrets too dangerous to disturb. Kapustin Yar has become more than a place. It is a presence, woven into the identity of the steppe, passed from one generation to the next. To some, it is only a military relic. To others, it is the key to unanswered questions about humanity's place in the universe. And for those who have lived closest to it, it is simply part of life, a silent reminder that the unknown can dwell right beside the ordinary, hidden behind fences waiting in the sky. As the years move forward, Kapustin Yar remains a paradox, a place that is both firmly real and yet endlessly mysterious. Its fences are visible, its silos documented, and its launches sometimes announced in short government statements. But what happens within its underground chambers and what drifts silently above its skies continues to resist explanation. Villagers nearby speak of how the base has shaped their lives across generations. They recall nights when a pale glow spreads across the horizon, steady and silent, unlike the fiery trails of rockets. Some tell of spheres that hover low over the fields, humming faintly before vanishing. Others describe sudden surges of heat in the air, powerful enough to make their skin prickle, though no source can be seen. Soldiers who once guarded the site remember the weight of secrecy pressing on their shoulders. They carried out their orders without question, but the strangeness never left them. Radios failing, equipment stalling, and skies filled with silent lights became part of their memories. Convoys that appeared without warning, cargo disappearing into the earth, left them with more questions than answers. Even years later, veterans speak of the place with caution, as if some part of them still belongs to it. Western observers continue their watch from afar. Satellite photographs capture shapes carved into the land, new entrances disguised with soil, and heat signatures glowing from beneath the steppe. Analysts argue over what these mean: new weapons, hidden research, or something beyond our comprehension. Each clue adds more to the myth, ensuring Kapustin Yar's legend never fades. Hunters, travellers, and drivers passing through the region all add to the chorus of accounts. They speak of orbs pacing their vehicles, of shadows gliding silently across the stars, of clearings where silence is absolute. To them, the mystery is not theoretical. It is something lived, something felt. By now, Kapustin Yar has become more than Russia's Area 51. It is a symbol of how secrets endure, how silence feeds imagination, and how mystery refuses to die. Rockets may continue to rise, but for many the greater story lies not in the launches but in the unspoken presence that surrounds the base. It stands as both a monument to human ambition and a reminder that we may not be alone in the universe. The steppe holds its silence, but within that silence, legends continue to grow. Today, Kapustin Yar endures as one of the most enigmatic sites on Earth, a place where secrecy and speculation have intertwined for generations. Officially, it remains a missile test range, guarded and active, with rockets still rising from its silos. Yet the legend that surrounds it has grown far larger than any single launch or experiment. For the villagers who live nearby, the base is part of their daily reality. They continue to speak of nights when the skies shimmer with pale light, when fields glow faintly before dawn, and when animals panic for no reason. Farmers still find barren circles etched into the soil, scars that resist growth no matter how many seasons pass. Hunters describe encountering stretches of forest where silence is so heavy it feels unnatural, as if the world itself pauses within those boundaries. Soldiers too carry their memories. Many never speak openly, bound by oaths of secrecy, but in private they admit to strange experiences. Convoys arriving under blackout conditions, cargo sealed and vanishing into underground chambers, radar screens lighting up with impossible signals, objects moving in ways no aircraft could, radios failing, compasses spinning, and the uneasy sensation of being observed from above. For them, Kapustin Yar is a posting unlike any other, a place that leaves questions long after service ends. Abroad, analysts continue their watch. Satellites track every new construction, every unusual heat signature, every geometric shape carved into the land. Reports of unidentified aerial phenomena across southern Russia still draw attention, and many maps place Kapustin Yar at the centre. For researchers and enthusiasts alike, it has become a symbol of humanity's confrontation with the unknown. Over the decades, the legend has grown larger than the base itself. It is no longer just a story of rockets or weapons. It is a reflection of human curiosity, of the desire to understand what lies beyond, and of the enduring presence of mystery in a world that often feels mapped and explained. Kapustin Yar reminds us that some questions resist answers, some secrets remain hidden, and some places keep their silence no matter how much time passes. The steppe holds its calm, the fences stand tall, and the skies above continue to flicker with lights that no report can fully explain. In the end, Kapustin Yar is both real and myth, a place where history, secrecy, and the unknown meet. And perhaps that is why its story endures, because even in an age of endless information, the world still needs mysteries,